And not everyone will understand the way you love. And that's okay, because the chosen ones don't love the way the world taught. They love with awareness, with surrender, with dignity. They feel before reality shows anything. They recognize when something is divine, even when it's not obvious. The love of the chosen ones is silent, but all of heaven moves because of it. There are pains no one sees, silences no one understands, separations no one can explain. But the chosen one feels, and even without having all the answers, they keep their heart open. Not because they're weak, but because they are strong enough to love with maturity, strong enough to respect the timing, steady enough not to lose themselves trying to hold on to what is not yet ready. You who are reading this now may have loved someone in silence. You may have felt that your soul recognized something deep, but you had to walk away for the sake of self-love. That is not failure, that is wisdom. Heaven recognizes that kind of love, the kind that protects, but also knows how to let go. The kind that loves without abandoning itself. That feels deeply, but chooses peace. This is not ordinary content. It is a spiritual calling for those who know that love goes beyond emotion. It is for those who loved with purity, stood firm with strength, and chose truth even when it hurt. Here, we're not talking about superficial romance. We're talking about souls that recognize each other and pay the price of waiting, of respecting, and of remaining silent. I am George, and if you made it this far, this space is yours too. Welcome. Here, you will find words that speak to your soul. If this message touched you, follow the channel. There is much more coming, and I want to walk with you on this journey of awareness, faith, and true love. You are not alone. Let's go together. Not every love is noticed. Not every love draws attention. Some are intense, loud, full of words, promises, and grand gestures. Others are calm, steady, and deep, almost invisible to the world, but fully visible to the eyes of God. And that was the kind of love you lived. A love that didn't need an audience to be real. A love that touched heaven. While many people love in a rush, you loved with presence. While many try to control, you allowed. You didn't try to mold the person into your expectations. You didn't demand they be ready in your timing. You saw them as they were. You felt them with your soul, not your projections. You understood that true love does not force. It embraces, and that embrace is what set you apart. You could have shouted your pain, demanded answers, insisted on action. But you chose the silence of wisdom. You chose prayer instead of pressure, listening instead of arguing, space instead of anxiety. That wasn't weakness. It was self-control. It was spiritual maturity. You weren't looking for a fairy tale ending. You were seeking true connection, an honest exchange, even if imperfect. And that's why you didn't place the other on a pedestal. You saw the flaws, you recognized the fears, you felt the blocks, but still, you chose to look with compassion. Because a chosen soul understands that the other is also on a journey. The most beautiful part of it all was how you positioned yourself. You didn't lose yourself in the process of loving. You didn't disconnect from your truth. You didn't stop listening to yourself. On the contrary, the more you loved, the more you got to know yourself. The more you felt, the stronger you became. That's the kind of love that doesn't drown you. It lifts you up. That's why heaven paused to observe. Not out of romance, but reverence. Because when a soul loves like that, something shifts in the invisible realm. Something heals. Something realigns. Something is released. And even if that love wasn't returned in the same measure, your offering was recorded as one of the purest forms of spiritual love. You weren't chosen by accident. You were chosen because your soul can handle depths many avoid. Because you can hold love without letting it destroy you. You didn't fall apart. You transformed. and heaven honors each of your steps, even the ones taken in silence. If you feel this kind of love lived inside you, write in the comments, "I loved with my soul and heaven saw it." There's a moment when everything falls silent. The conversation stops, the answers don't come, the signs seem hidden. That's when most people panic. But the chosen ones, they stay. Even without understanding everything, even without guarantees, even with a restless heart. They stay where God positioned them, with faith and maturity. You went through that silence. You knew that space between feeling and fulfillment. But what no one saw, heaven witnessed. Your soul stood firm even when your mind wanted to give up. You didn't chase down forced answers. You didn't beg for attention. You didn't fall into the despair of need. You chose the dignity of faith, and that faith wasn't based on visible promises. It came from an inner certainty, from something you felt deeply, even when nothing around you confirmed it. The chosen ones carry a kind of spiritual radar, an internal knowing that doesn't depend on circumstances. That's why you kept walking in peace, even without a map. You trusted, even without guarantees. During that time, you were being shaped. The silence that felt like punishment was actually the space where God was strengthening you. He was clearing distractions, organizing your emotions, aligning your intentions. Because those who love deeply must also learn to love with balance. And that's exactly what you did. Heaven saw it all. It saw you choosing silence as a space for listening, not as punishment. It saw you walking away with honor, no bitterness, no noise. It saw you protecting yourself without hardening, because there is spiritual strength in walking away with peace, in respecting another's timing without abandoning yourself in the process. You didn't use silence as a weapon. You used it as a shield. It became your place of rest when words weren't enough. It was the place you returned to speak with God, to heal what hurt, to restore your strength. Many call that weakness. Heaven calls it wisdom. That silence, that waiting, that pause, all of it was sacred. And more than that, it was necessary. Because true love requires that the roots grow deep before the fruit appears. And your roots grew in the unseen. They grew through tears no one saw, through whispered prayers, through nights when you chose not to send the message your pride wanted to. You are being prepared to love with even more fullness, and do you know why? Because you didn't seek love to be completed. You sought love to share, and only the chosen ones do that. The majority try to avoid pain, but the chosen ones, they go through it with their eyes open. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because they know that some pains carry revelations that can only be found in the crossing. But in the end, that pain did not destroy you. It revealed you. You saw yourself with more honesty. You began to understand what you need, what you accept, what you no longer tolerate. Pain did not make you cold. It made you clear. And clarity is a rare gift. You began to recognize your own limits. Not the limits others taught you to have, but your own. You understood that you don't need to insist where there is absence, that you shouldn't chase after someone who only walks by your side when it's convenient. That love is not made of eternal waiting, but of true encounters, and that this encounter begins within. The chosen go through this type of awakening. It's not pretty nor easy, but it is necessary. Pain for them is a portal, a place of crossing between emotional naivety and spiritual wisdom. And you crossed that place and came out more whole, more lucid, more prepared. Heaven saw you cry in silence, saw you fighting the urge to prove yourself, saw you choosing self-respect when your heart wanted to give without measure. Heaven saw you choosing to preserve yourself, even while loving. Saw you saying, "Enough," not out of anger, but out of maturity. Saw you saying goodbye not for lack of love, but for excess of truth. And that truth is what strengthened you. You no longer romanticized absence. You no longer confused depth with attachment. You began to separate what is real feeling from unresolved neediness. And that is progress. That is a milestone. Today you don't love less, you love better. With roots, with time, with discernment, and with peace. If you turn pain into maturity, write in the comments, "Pain taught me to love with wisdom." The chosen love differently. Their love doesn't depend on physical presence, constant conversation, or the certainty of return. The love of the chosen is a seed sown in the spirit. It doesn't die for not being seen. It matures in silence, with invisible roots. This kind of love touches deeply. Even if the other soul is not ready to recognize it, they feel it, and feel it strongly. Because there is no defense against love that is pure. It penetrates, it leaves a mark, it heals, even without contact. Maybe you never said everything you felt. Maybe you stayed silent when you wanted to speak. Maybe you walked away when you wanted to stay. But none of that diminished the value of what you carried. On the contrary, it made the love more noble. Because you didn't try to convince anyone of what you felt. You simply lived what was real for you. And that, my soul, is rare. Loving without immediate return takes courage. But the chosen love with courage. They do not love out of need. They love because they recognize. And recognizing a soul has nothing to do with logic. It has to do with spiritual harmony. The energy of your love keeps working. It keeps teaching. Because this kind of love educates silently. It shows the other what is possible. It becomes a spiritual reference. Even if the mind forgets, the soul remembers. You became a living memory of what it is to be loved with respect, of what it is to be accepted without demand, of what it is to be seen beyond the masks. Maybe the other soul still doesn't know how to reciprocate. Maybe it's still processing. But one thing is certain. They will never forget what they received from you. And the most beautiful part of all, you didn't let this love paralyze you. You moved on. You kept growing, praying, developing, going deeper. Because you understood that true love was never an end. It was always a starting point. An impulse to become more of yourself. If you've ever loved someone with presence even in their absence, write in the comments. I choose to love with freedom and truth. The majority try to avoid pain, but the chosen ones, they go through it with their eyes open. Not because they like to suffer, but because they know that some pains carry revelations that can only be found in the crossing. But in the end, that pain didn't destroy you. It revealed you. You saw yourself with more honesty. You began to understand what you need, what you accept, what you no longer tolerate. Pain didn't make you cold. It made you clear. And clarity is a rare gift. You started to recognize your own limits. Not the limits others taught you to have, but your own. You understood that you don't need to insist where there is absence. That you shouldn't chase after someone who only walks by your side when it's convenient. That love isn't made of eternal waiting, but of true encounter. And that this encounter begins within. The chosen go through this type of awakening. It's not pretty, nor easy, but it's necessary. Pain, for them, is a portal, a place of transition between emotional naivety and spiritual wisdom. And you crossed that place, and came out more whole, more lucid, more prepared. Heaven saw you cry in silence, saw you fighting the urge to prove yourself, saw you choosing self-respect when your heart wanted to give without limits. Heaven saw you choosing to preserve yourself, even while loving. Saw you saying enough, not out of anger, but with maturity. Saw you saying goodbye, not for lack of love, but for excess of truth. And that truth is what strengthened you. You no longer romanticized absence. You no longer confused depth with attachment. You began to separate what is real feeling from unresolved emotional need. And that is growth. That is a turning point. Today, you don't love less. You love better. With roots, with time, with discernment, and with peace. If you turned pain into maturity, write in the comments, "Pain taught me to love with wisdom." There comes a time in the life of the chosen ones when noise is no longer an answer. Other people's words no longer nourish the soul. Promises don't bring comfort. Excuses don't convince. That's when silence starts to speak louder than any speech. You've entered that time. A time where what's not true can no longer remain. Where inconsistency no longer has space in your life. And even without saying a word, your spirit already knows who is present and who never really was. This silence isn't empty. It's full of discernment, full of signs, full of truths the soul understands even when the ears don't hear. Because God speaks like that to the chosen. He doesn't shout. He guides calmly. And maybe you're living through this silence now. Maybe you're waiting for an explanation that never came. Maybe you're feeling the absence of someone who left without warning. Maybe you're dealing with confusions that never got resolved. But pay attention. Silence is not rejection. Many times, it's liberation. Heaven responds through what no longer holds. When something or someone begins to leave your life without your effort, it's because heaven is clearing the way, not as punishment, but as care. You're not being ignored. You're being refined. Because the chosen ones can't walk with just anyone. They need connections that support purpose, not just presence. And the more you mature, the less you feel the need to explain yourself. You stop chasing after what doesn't reciprocate. You stop feeding what only survives by insistence. You stop fighting for something that no longer makes sense. And this surrender is not giving up. It's wisdom. It's emotional maturity. It's a soul that has already understood that what is real remains, even in silence, and what isn't fades over time. You may have cried in silence. You may have felt longing. You may have prayed asking for answers. But now is the time to trust that heaven has already answered. With distance, with pauses, with subtle changes your intuition already noticed. Trust that. Trust the peace that comes when something leaves your life without you having to push it. Trust the lightness that comes when you stop trying to understand what never made sense. Heaven doesn't act by chance. It doesn't remove something to leave you empty. It removes it to make space, because something greater is coming. Someone more whole is on the way, and now you have the inner space to receive it. You don't need to be angry about what left, nor do you need to fight to hold on to what no longer aligns. The chosen live by direction, not by attachment. If you feel that heaven's silence was already an answer, write in the comments, "I understood, and I walk in peace." After so many waits, surrenders, and silences, the moment comes that changes everything, the one in which heaven returns free will with strength. A moment where God, who molded you in silence, looks at you and says, "Now it's you who chooses." This choice is not light. It's a decision that carries the weight of awareness. Because after you mature spiritually, you no longer choose out of lack, but out of clarity. You don't decide based on absence, but on completeness. You don't seek someone to fill you, but someone to walk beside you, without diminishing you, without delaying you. And it's at this point that the chosen ones realize the journey was not in vain. All the love you carried in silence, all the waiting you endured with patience, all the times you said no to impulse and yes to discernment. All of it prepared you for this exact moment. Now you no longer need to beg for attention. You no longer seek desperate signs. You no longer try to decipher silences that aren't yours. You simply choose to remain where there is peace. You look back and understand. You didn't lose anyone. You found yourself again. And more than that, you grew. Because loving with maturity didn't break you. It strengthened you. And now you choose more calmly. Because you understood that reciprocity is not a luxury. It's a foundation. You understood that presence is not everything. It's the quality of presence that matters. Maybe you still feel a trace of longing. Maybe your heart still beats for memories. But even that has changed. Now, longing doesn't paralyze you anymore. It only confirms that you are real, that you are whole, that you are honest. Now it's your turn to set boundaries, to establish your energy, to make it clear. Only those who respect remain. Only those who value may access. Only those who have already left the cycle of indecision may walk beside you. The choice is now in your hands, and it doesn't matter if the other soul returns or not. What matters is, you return to yourself. You found yourself. And that reunion is more sacred than any reconciliation. Because when you love yourself the right way, heaven releases people who also know how to love that way. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to be whole. And this wholeness, my chosen soul, is your mark now. You were trained in silence, refined in the wait, molded in faith. Now you are the one who does not beg. You are the one who chooses. If you understood that now it's your time to choose with awareness, write in the comments, I choose with peace, with love, and with firmness. You made it here. You read every word. You felt each part touch silent places inside you. And that says a lot. It says you didn't just go through this journey. You awakened within it. The chosen ones are not defined by what they suffer, but by the way they keep loving even when everything inside feels tired. They don't live in search of external proof. They live in peace with what the Spirit confirms within. You didn't lose anything. What left needed to leave. What stayed is still aligning. And what will come will be worthy of the version you've become. This walk taught you that true love doesn't demand begging. It doesn't cause constant confusion. It doesn't take your peace. True love builds, reveals, protects. It walks together. It respects the time without interrupting the process. You also learned that respecting your intuition is honoring the divine presence within you. That not every absence is rejection. Sometimes it's redirection. That not every silence is the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of a new, more aligned, more mature, more whole cycle. The chosen ones live from the inside out. They feel before the world confirms. They know when they need to step away even without all the answers. They know how to wait without getting lost. They know how to let go without closing off. They know how to move forward without turning to stone. Heaven didn't choose you by chance. Everything you felt, carried, silenced, prayed about, and discerned, it was all noticed. There were moments when it seemed no one saw your effort. But heaven did. And every time you chose to keep your integrity, even with a heavy heart, a new door opened in the invisible. This journey of love, awareness, and faith does not end here. It's just transforming. Because now, with all that you've learned, you carry light wherever you go. You've become a reference for others who are still in the middle of the path, searching for meaning in their own pain. You've become more of yourself. And as much as the love for another soul may have been significant, the reunion with your own essence was the true miracle. That's what heaven wanted to show you all along. If you've come this far with an open heart, then this message was for you. Write in the comments, "I am chosen, and I move forward with strength and peace." And share it with someone who also needs to remember their own worth. Because sometimes, all a soul needs is to be reminded. It's not alone on this journey, and everything it felt was real.